All right, then good morning and welcome to our digital research journey on strategies and best practice examples for openness in science and innovation policies. Unfortunately, in time of crisis. But nevertheless, I'm very happy having you here today, and I'm looking forward to hearing about good practice examples, discussing lessons learned, and obviously hearing your feedback and your thoughts as well. So my name is Marte Kessler, and I and my team, we are responsible for the program area Transfer, Innovation and Cooperation at Stifterverband, and we are also responsible for InnOsci, the Forum for Open Innovation Culture at Stifterverband. And last year, as some of you might remember, we have introduced an international research study and have discussed what Germany can learn from science and innovation policies from all over the world. So we actually can also post the link to this former study in the chat for everyone who is interested, but it will be in German, just as heads up. And today in our current research studies, we want to zoom in a little bit and learn in particular from practitioners and best practice cases. So from the meta level, we double click down and look at the actual doing. And yeah, I'm really excited already about it and what we will learn in a couple of minutes. And so Gertraud, maybe now we could share the agenda, because we will start our session with a short input on the role of openness in multiple crises. And then there will be a sneak preview into our research study and into key findings. And then we will learn from best practices and best practice cases from Finland, Switzerland, and Denmark. And I'm really looking forward to it. So who are we? We are InnOsci, the Forum for Open Innovation Culture, a project run by Stifterverband, and a project that is funded by the German Ministry of Education and Research. And InnOsci will be concluded by the end of next month, but obviously there's still a lot to do, and Stifterverband will continue to work on innovation topics and open innovation topics, and always obviously with a focus on higher education. So stay tuned, there's more to come. And yes, now I would like to say a special thanks to our partner, winnovation, who have conducted our research study, and Gertraud Leimüller and her team. And of course, also a big thanks and welcome to our guests from Finland, Switzerland, and Denmark. And then last but not least, also I would like to quickly thank Judith Mühlenhoff on my team, who is in the lead for the research study and also organized the event today. So, but now I don't want to keep us much longer, and I'm very happy to introduce Andrea Frank, our Deputy Secretary General at Stifterverband. And yes, Andrea, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Marte. Welcome to everybody to this digital research journey. I think we all would have loved to be at the countries in person. At least for myself, I'd love to be in Finland, Denmark, or Swiss. It would be all the same, I think. But thank you for coming into this room and giving us the opportunity to learn from you via this digital journey. For those who do not know us, the Stifterverband as an organization is a non-profit private funding organization and a think tank. We are at the interface of industry, politics, academia, and civil society. And we do understand ourselves as an agent for change and as an agent to foster debate on science, higher education, and innovation. So I think the topic of collaboration of industry and science is a core topic that we explore from very different angles. And InnOsci has focused over the last years on the question how strategic openness can actually create more economic as well as society values. So I think this has been a very valuable contribution to how we go forward when it comes to innovation policy. As an opening, I just would like to use a few minutes to reflect on strategies for openness in the age of multiple crises, and just elaborate on 3 thoughts. First, I would comment on the role of openness and collaboration during the crisis that we envision right now, that we see right now. In Germany, the wording Zeitenwende, I think, describes it quite well, and we can observe the relevance of innovation in these times. When we look at the last 2 years and the COVID pandemic, I think we could observe that it has increased the willingness of science to embrace openness within academia, but also in the collaboration between academia and science. It has proved, I think, to be highly efficient when it comes to the production of new knowledge, but also when it comes to the speed of developing solutions for very big challenges. Just take vaccination as one example. So it seems that we need to join forces to ease the multiple crises even more than before. And I think collaboration, the sharing of knowledge in an open environment, and the co-production of solutions can help to tackle crisis. And we need to understand open science and open innovation not as an add-on, but as a mindset when it comes to research and innovation. When we look at the current crisis caused by the war in the Ukraine, I think we see another challenge to openness. We can observe how doors are closed in collaborations, offenses are put up again between nations, and this prevents cooperation within academia, but also between the sectors with industry, civil society, and politics. But at the same time, it leads also to new pathways of collaboration. We explore other areas that we might not have observed before as a partner for collaboration. And it also shows that collaboration should not only be based solely on economic reasons and causes, but also should be based on similar and shared values and serving the common good. So I think this has also become very obvious in the current times. I come to my second thought, and this is the need of innovation ecosystems. I think the change often starts on a regional and a local level. So I think to tackle crisis and provide solutions for our societal challenges, innovation ecosystems can play a very important role. This is not a new concept, innovation ecosystems, but I think it is being strongly picked up by the political decision makers. Again, at least in Germany, they have picked it up in the coalition paper. They talked about enterprising zones. They talked about how they can strengthen regional cooperation in innovation ecosystems. So I think universities especially face a big opportunity here to take a leading and enabling role in these regional and local ecosystems, because they are more than just the producers of knowledge. They can integrate and embrace new knowledge from all sources, also from outside of academia. So I think this is a times of great opportunity also for universities. And last but not least, and this brings us already a little bit to our guest speakers today, I think the role of intermediaries is very much needed, but it maybe also needs to be redesigned maybe. Collaboration between different sectors and the orchestration of these ecosystems calls for intermediary roles to integrate the different perspectives. And as we can observe, a lot of translation is needed between industry, academia, but also between academia and civil society and politics. So integrating stakeholders, facilitating collaboration, establishing trust, these are all tasks that could be taken over by intermediaries. But to be honest, when I look at our own innovation system, I sometimes wonder whether all the roles of intermediaries are clear to them, are clear to each other, and if they all save and cater to the goal of strengthening innovation. So I think this is a field that we could maybe critically assess and see how we can redesign or further develop the role of intermediaries. This brings me to the end of my little welcome, and I'm really looking forward to learn from our partners in Denmark, Finland, and Switzerland. I'm also looking forward to our sneak preview. Thank you, Gertraud, to you and your team for conducting the study, and I hope we will all leave this short event with insights and inspiration for our own work. And with this, thank you very much, and I hand over to you, Marte.
Excellent, thank you. And I think I will give back the microphone to, or not back, but I will hand over the microphone directly to Gertraud, who will share insights and key findings with us on our research.
Thank you, Marte and Andrea, for this perfect introduction. So we at winnovation, we are an open innovation expert organization here in Vienna, and we work since 16 years on open innovation methods, not only in business, in the whole triple and quintuple helix context, so also a lot with research organizations, with science, with policy makers, and with business and civil society organizations. And I have to say, as an introduction, in these 16 years of supporting open innovation processes, already in the last 5 years, I would say we saw that the digitization is really speeding up and increasing the awareness for openness, because you do oftentimes software development, for instance, at remote places, at distributed places in the world. It's really under high speed done and so on. But in the pandemic, now we see a new development. So we see very much a new seriousness for the linkage between research and society. So over the last 2.5 years. And so we see in a lot of different places in the world that we work on really openness also in order to increase this linkage. So now it's really the time for openness. And what do I mean with openness? So Andrea already talked about strategic openness. I think I want to be very frank at the beginning. Openness is not sharing everything, because this also raises huge questions about competitiveness. And we see this creates quite a misunderstanding also in the following examples for some of the stakeholders. So I want to be very clear that a strategic openness means that we open up not for its own sake, but in order to create more novel knowledge, in order to speed up innovation processes, in order to include actors better into this dialogue and increase the flow of knowledge, and finally really increase impact in society. And we have 3 different forms of openness. So collaboration, because oftentimes knowledge is hidden within individuals and not so tacit knowledge. Then we have another dimension is accessibility. So knowledge produced has to be accessible for different stakeholders, or especially for users of this new knowledge. And the third dimension is transparency about processes or about the questions we are tackling. So this is the foundation. What are we talking about? So we mean really strategic forms of openness, and this involves also sometimes closedness. Now it's the time for openness. Why is this? We realize, I think all together in our mindset, we live in an ever-changing world, and now the pressure to change is stronger and more disruptive than ever before. And I think this does a lot to innovation policy makers, because the core task of innovation policy is not anymore just to feed, let's say, the research and innovation system. It's really much broader now. It's a huge task to enable societies to proactively search, develop, and make use of new solutions. So the audience is much broader right now, and also the goal, the ambition is really higher. And I think this is an interesting statement. If we have this goal, what do we do with this? We lived through a huge decade or even 2 decades of expansion in knowledge and innovation systems, I think throughout the world. If you look at China, if you look at Switzerland, all over the world, we had an expansion of money from governments, from businesses going into this area. But we know also that this time might be over. We need a stronger focus for different reasons. I don't want to go into this, but we will see that also governmental money is getting down in several areas here. Yeah, so we need a stronger focus, prioritization. And we see here 4 major developments in the context of openness. And this is already fed also by our study and our broader experience here. So in order to solve the current problems, and I talked about the ambition, we have to use broader definitions of innovation. And we see this already, for instance, in Germany, where the Ministry of Economic Affairs had brought up pilot programs like Zukunftsregion, for instance, or the IGP program, where they experiment with new formats. We need more radical innovation. Yeah, I think also about the recently funded Sprint organization here, where quite some experiments are happening. We need the translation between the silos in order to reach true societal impact, and not only the translation between the usuals. Oftentimes it's about including unusual actors into research and innovation, being it SMEs, who are really oftentimes research adverse, I would say. They're really in a huge distance to R&D. The majority, I would say, we always talk about a minority when we look at those who are doing already research, but also civil society organization, culture, art, and so on. So in order to do this, we need new institutions, new programs. I think about DATI here. So in the last 2 bullet points, I think we can also reflect that the intended new organization for transfer in Germany, which is not funded yet, but there are preparations underway. So let's learn from others. What are these new formats and processes we could think of? And this is the goal of the qualitative study on behalf of Stifterverband we are doing right now, and it should be finished during the summer. So the goal is to really develop recommendations for Germany, how to promote openness from a policymaker perspective. And we carefully looked and are still looking at 10 international best practices we identified through research. And these are either measures or funding instruments. So we excluded, for instance, own sole strategies. So it's really about doing and experimenting with new formats. I start already with the first of 3 meta findings I want to share before we go into the 3 examples here. And it's very important, I think, to be aware that the ecosystem thinking Andrea already mentioned at the beginning does not come easily, because we have systems which are geared toward projects. So we always fund projects. Projects have an end, have a beginning and an end. Yeah, oftentimes they have the tendency to be like really in German you would say Beutegemeinschaft, which is, I think, a kind of boot company in English. Yeah, so they are falling apart once you have achieved the goal. Yeah, and nothing remains then. So there's no structure left. The boundaries are not that strong. So this is really something new for policymakers. Why? We need ecosystems, innovation ecosystems, when we want radical innovation and really develop new knowledge, oftentimes because it doesn't go that quickly that we think. So the project order does not fit here. Yeah. So we need a supportive social environment here in order to provide open and fast knowledge from diverse actors and experiment with these new ideas. And 3 characteristics I think are very important. We talk about communities with bandwidth. So according to a topic field, not just 3 consortia members. So we need many more perspectives oftentimes in order to generate really novel solutions and solutions which have an impact in society or a chance of impact. We need diverse actors, including the unusual suspects, and from the beginning on, policymakers should think to gear ecosystems towards a longer shelf life than just a few months or years. Yeah. So what does this mean? We have to think as policymakers to build intentional ecosystems. Yeah, they do not occur by chance. So I have 4 learnings here. So provide supportive structure spaces and pre-selected topic fields. So oftentimes it's really wise to organize ecosystems around missions, for instance, or challenges, whatever you call them. Yeah. Then involve clever matchmaking activities in order to connect unusual partners, bring them into, incentivize long-term thinking. So what is after the funding? Yeah. Do the stakeholders really think they can run this ecosystem for a longer time? Yeah. Can they build something which is sustainable and keep on creating and supporting? Does not mean always from a state or a government perspective, but could also be done by the stakeholders themselves. We see quite a lot of examples fostering ecosystems internationally. So we hear today, I think, with the Swiss and Danish examples, but also in Austria, we do since some years a program called Innovationswerkstätten, or in Canada, the Structural Genomics Consortium is an ecosystem. The Nordic e-infrastructure collaboration where the Nordic countries work on really high performance computing together, or another is OEX from Denmark. Yeah. So this is the first change, the big meta finding we see already now. The second is think in terms of space, not excellence. So, and by purpose, we framed this more provocative. And I don't want to say that Germany doesn't need excellence university. Yeah, I think as always, it's about having a range of different measures, but oftentimes we exclude a lot of people if we only think about excellence. It's about balancing. So why do we have to think about space? Innovation happens in a very specific context. Yeah, we often forget about that. We really often, when I read calls, I think it's very, very abstract. And this is about geographical space, but also social space. So the space which is inhabited by individuals, by organizations who have linkages between them. Yeah, space matters because it determines for whom and by whom is innovation done. So what do we speak about? It's about creating physical spaces where collaboration between new groups of people is fostered, not always the same old gang. Yeah, so this is really something very interesting, I think. So these social spaces we can create are a prerequisite for new innovation ecosystems. It's also about geographical space in order to not address always the same hotspots, only the best of the best. We should focus on certain urban and rural places and regions by purpose from the beginning on. So from a policymaker perspective, we have also here 5 findings we want to share with you. So spaces should be hosted by locally embedded and neutral organizations. For instance, this could be, of course, universities, if they are ready to change their roles. But it's not only about the space. Once you have a space, you need also a program for innovation brokerage, matchmaking, and interaction design. So without the program, space doesn't help you a lot. It needs a specific interaction program. And then a huge chance is really to involve very small actors here, like SMEs, nonprofits, or startups, to bring them at certain spaces where trust can be generated. Yeah, so these spaces could then be also outside typical hotspots, like smaller town or rural areas, and think about also connecting these local spaces, connecting the dots and form networks of networks. So there are really a lot of different possibilities here. We have a lot of examples internationally. For instance, in Nika in Great Britain, or in Austria, we will recently start after a pilot the full program of Regional Digital Innovative, which looks at innovation regions in the countryside. The third meta finding is think impact, not transfer, and it addresses specifically research organizations, or if you want to say universities here. So for them, we really see that there's a huge chance to generate more meaning for societies nowadays, yeah, and they can use this chance or not. So it's time to bid farewell to the limited view on technology transfer, yeah. So research institutions should think about new roles and forming a new identity. I think here really strongly that they could become an open innovation hub for their region, or also internationally in certain topic areas where they are specialized in. It's very important that from a governance perspective, they take on new roles here, yeah. So what are here important elements? So they should make sure that research results are absorbed by an innovation ecosystem. So this means that you cannot start just technology transfer at the end once you have new knowledge, and then you think about patenting or bringing it out to other stakeholders out there and looking for someone who might use it. It's too late. Yeah? So technology transfer in an open innovation meeting starts already with the research question you are tackling. So it brings also the right actors into university spheres early on. Make sure that there's an intensive dialogue and exchange along the processes, and incentivize also individual scientists and groups for generating impact through new KPIs. So if we only tell them you have to publish or perish, yeah? Then probably they won't go into these activities. So this is also on a university level task to be fulfilled. So what can Germany learn here from international best practices? Get the research institutions in the driver's seat. Yeah, get them in the driver's seat of this development, of this change. Yeah, and incentivize that they think about their new roles and how they could fulfill it. It's also very crucial, I think, that research organizations develop a better understanding on societal and business needs early on. Yeah, they are often, of course, sitting in the silos, as we all do in our environments. Then get them the necessary support. I think strongly in terms of skills, that they can do this knowledge exchange, work with different actors. And I think a very nice example is here from Denmark's Skylab Pilots. We have here Søren here with us, and also the cooperation from Business Finland. Pekka is also here with us, yeah. So these are the three meta findings so far. The study is not finished yet, but we are in high speed underway, I would say. Now time is progressing. So I would say that we go into the Meet the Expert session. I will introduce, before we go into the breakout session, the examples briefly, and then ask the practitioners, the experts from the funding organization or the implementing organization, always 2 questions for you. And everyone who is participant here can then ask in a breakout session deeper questions, yeah, of course. So we want to start with the country which is most distant from here, Germany. And this is, I think, Finland, clearly, yeah. And we heard several times cooperation funding from Business Finland as an example already in the meta findings. So we have here with us Pekka Ollikainen. He's senior advisor from Business Finland. And Business Finland was formed in 2018 out of TechHS, which is a well-known organization in the international innovation policy sphere, I would say, together with another Finnish business organization. And as I understood, their core mission is really to bring new knowledge generated in Finland out to international markets. Yeah, really, it's about competitiveness and creating value out of new knowledge. And co-creation funding is very interesting. It's targeting research organizations. So I would assume, and we can ask Pekka afterwards, mainly universities, and they get money for looking into potential markets which fit their research. So they get money to explore the market, yeah, find potential business partners there, and develop a project plan. So this is the first step. And if they succeed in this co-creation exercise, then some of them are funded by another following program, which is the co-innovation program of Business Finland. And two learnings before I ask them Pekka and bring him on the table, two learnings we see here from this best practice. So to guide scientists exploring the impact of their ideas in business and society requires dedicated programs and support. It doesn't happen by itself. So you cannot request from a scientist that they explore markets by themselves. I think this was a strong learning they had also in Finland. And even with these dedicated programs, the translation does not happen overnight. It needs a lot of time to understand potential application markets and results in a substantial mindset shift at the side of the researchers. So welcome, Pekka. My first question to you is, you developed this co-creation funding as a support instrument to make researchers early on aware about their potential target markets. So what showed you that such a funding is necessary?
Thank you. It's a very interesting question. And what we have learned earlier was that we received a lot of these joint funding application the next stage after this one, but some of them were not of so high quality. So we had to do some interaction with the applicants. So we had to act like an intermediator between the scientist and the industry, as well as the policymakers. So we created this small funding for research organization that they can dedicate their studies and to look on the markets and the potential to work with the companies in the next stage of funding.
So you learned that it really needs some dedicated preparation, time and effort to solve the question, for whom could I use my research?
Yes, indeed. And what we have learned here is that we have a higher quality funding application, and it will speed up our funding process. And we have a better throughput on the about 5,000 applicants we are handling every year. Wow. So this is kind of guideline that helps in our daily work. And also we can show the politicians that our funding has an impact, since we have higher quality applications and our processing times is shortened by this kind of pre-funding.
So this is a huge program. Another interesting question is, and I ask you also for a short answer here, I said already it takes some time until scientists learn about their potential markets. How long does it take? What is your experience for this very first step of co-creation?
This kind of first step co-creation funding takes between 4 to 6 months. And the universities nowadays have supporting actions, internal activity to help these individual researchers and professors, so that they give the first help from the internal department of the university. Of course, we are taking hand also all the applicants and giving them help also during when they are running this co-creation funding project.
And until they understand businesses better, it takes another time, isn't it, after the 6 months? So on overall, probably potentially years.
It creates better applications, and then a second stage of funding typically takes 2 to 3 years time of running that joint project with research organization and companies. And so we can say about 4 years time we will get the final results. And we have had this co-creation for a few years, so we are evaluating what is the impact, and it seems to be very beneficial for us.
Mm-hmm. So your final goal really to make Finland more competitive by applying new knowledge out of research to international market is really coming nearer, I would say, by this program. So you have really success in doing this co-creation.
Yes, indeed. And we can find the best expertise from our universities that can be help those companies to create new export.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Pekka. At this stage, we go over to Søren Ammundsen. He comes from the Danish technical universities, NTUs, and he runs the pilot project Skylab. So I go to the next slide here, Skylab Pilots. So first with Finland, we had the target audience researchers, and the goal really to allow them to learn about businesses and markets. Now we go over to really a focus group, which is kind of different. It's more SMEs. How do we involve SMEs in research and development activities? This pilot matches deep tech startups with students and researchers. And this newly formed group sit side by side in a big developer hall at DTU. And of course, this fosters communication between these very diverse groups, I would say. They have access to prototyping labs and develop innovative solutions within 10 months, ending with a defined exit phase. And an interesting fact is that these pilots are accompanied by scientists researching how to involve SMEs into R&D. So the hope is that DTU generates here also learnings for other programs in the future. Why did we find this example so interesting? So it's about sharing social space. It's about creating social space. A lot of universities might have if they think about it and could create in the future. So here are oftentimes unused transfer potential. If you think about, say, space, geographical space on campus, but also social space you could create out of this. And this kind of openness creates also a win-win. Yeah, the SMEs gain over this program experience in knowledge-intensive areas, and deep tech startups can get new partners, for instance, first clients, and access to excellent students when they are sitting at the universities. Yeah, but we assume that here universities have to think also about the new role, what I said already before about impact and open innovation hub. So, Søren, I have also prepared 2 questions for you. Let's start with the first one. The backbone of your pilot program is to investigate how the innovation power of SMEs can be strengthened. And what have you learned about this question so far? Does it work for you? Is this a method?
Yeah, so just to, we've been running the Skylab Pilots program for a little more than a year now. And it's part of the project is also research based, and by that I mean we have a team of researchers that is following the project and observing and collecting data with the aim for creating this validated best practice model for how to do this kind of collaboration between startups, SMEs, and universities. So we are on a learning journey, you could say, and we are learning a lot. Some of our assumptions did not hold true. So we are constantly adjusting and learning new things. I would not say we have cracked the code as of yet. We still have challenges in terms of what we knew would be difficult is to how to attract and involve the SMEs, because as you might know, SMEs are notoriously difficult to get into a dialogue about research and innovation because they are super busy in producing and selling and distributing and basically making money. So they, as an SME, you do not have typically you would not have someone in the company that has the title of innovation officer or something, and they would typically not have like an innovation department. You have to go into the more corporate level of companies in order to find these things. So we have encountered difficulties in attracting the SMEs and getting them to involve themselves and spending time on the projects. It works in some cases, and in other cases, not so much.
And it's probably the art to find the right SMEs who are ready to do this kind of collaboration also. Yes,
and that's also what we are trying to observe and test out, so that we, in the end of the program, can say, okay, we believe that this type of SME in this kind of industry with these characteristica, they are more open and willing to profit from this kind of collaboration, whereas this other type of SMEs, they require something else.
Right. So technically, University of Denmark has in Denmark a quite huge reputation and also internationally. So it forms a neutral and very respected ground to do such a program. What I find really interesting is what does running such a program, and I have to add, it's funded by the state, also by the government, over the industrial fund, I think. What does this to the university? So it's a kind of new thinking also here, having a space where such unusual suspects sit and work, isn't it?
Yes, and just to clarify, DTU Skylab, that is the innovation hub of DTU, and has existed for 7 or 8 years. And we run a lot of different programs and projects here with the open innovation agenda, and trying to involve actors from the outside of the university, so involving the students and the researchers in innovation processes. The Skylab Pilots program is a specific 3-year project that I'm in charge of. And correctly, it's funded by Industriens Fond. So it's not per se the government, it's a private foundation that is funding the project.
And what does this do with the university? So you said it's a long-term innovation space you are having here. So probably the university is already a little bit in this being open to others mindset.
Yeah. So you said that the long-term effect or impact is that we are fostering an innovation culture with the students and the researchers. They get introduced to innovation via Skylab, and when they graduate or move out into the society in other jobs, they carry with them a different kind of culture or mindset in terms of innovation. So that's sort of the overall long-term goal in terms of societal impact.
Very interesting. I think it connects very well also to this innovation ecosystem meta finding we had at the beginning. How do you create ecosystems? You create it over people, of course, and their capacity to form these diverse networks. Yeah. So also with you, we do the breakout then in the parallel sessions. Thank you, Søren, at this point for the explanation. I think we learned now a lot and understand this example better. Let's go to the Swiss example. It's end-to-end innovation booster done by Innosuisse in Switzerland, and Emile Dupont is team leader for knowledge and technology transfer in Innosuisse. So what is this example about? So it's targeting radical innovation. So probably this is a parallel to the German Sprint agency, but they do it, I think, in a kind of different way. So it's about through topic communities. They form around topics, these communities, and open innovation between diverse partners. So it's quite open, I think, to societal partners from all the quintuple helix areas. And they develop new solution concepts for common challenges. And what is, I think, really important, they also validate the most promising ideas. So there's also a filtering involved. Yeah, what can Germany learn from these Swiss examples? Especially, I think, radical innovations requires new perspectives, and this is done over new forms of partnerships and collaboration. So it's really important by purpose to build such communities where this can happen. A kind of openness is lived in order to exchange ideas without giving up. I think is also important the ownership of these ideas. Emile in our preparation talks talked also about this, that there's often a misunderstanding that businesses think they have to give up all the ownership. This is not, which is not true at all, but such a program has to be clear that this is not the case and explain it to people quite a lot. Then each booster around the topic is initiated by scientists or other actors. Yeah, they have to apply for that to initiate a booster around a topic. And then if it's run, then actors from society are drawn by, for instance, radio ads. So even unusual forms of advertisement to this booster and to this topic idea generation. So we found this quite interesting as an approach how to form radical innovation. We also prepared a few questions for you, Emile, based on what you explained already to us. What exactly does the validation of the most promising ideas entail, and why is validation of ideas so important in your program, Emile?
Thank you. Yes, the validation is also delegated from us to each booster. So each booster is a bit free to shape this form of validation. So they can fund validation of ideas in different shapes. In general, we think they should help the ideas that they select to really validate the potential of finding customers at the end of the development cycle. So it's really more intended as a customer verification at this point, a quick customer verification before putting in the technical efforts to develop then the idea into a product or a service or a process. It takes really different shapes. So they do customer surveys. They try to build very basic prototypes and then present them to potential users, see the first reactions. They try to discuss to these innovation teams or the teams behind the ideas, try to discuss with SMEs or big industrial partners that they find through the boosters to ensure that in the end, if they put the work to develop these ideas that are quite early stage into something more advanced, then it's also something that they can commercialize at one point or that someone can use.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you create a lot of different ideas in a topic booster, and then you shrink it down to, let's say, 20% or 30% or 10%, just to have an imagination.
Absolutely, yes. So every booster selects around 20 ideas per year. And it's, as you said, I think it's between 30 to 20% of all the ideas they generate, then they select. and they fund so that there's this commercialization verification in a way. And we also expect, because this should be radical ideas, so we also expect that then still maybe 80% of them do not continue into anything, but they bring learnings to the people who generated the idea.
So failure is embedded also in this project somehow, isn't it?
Absolutely, in the KPIs. So it's actually something where if a booster selects all ideas that then continue into another project, either an Innosuisse project or a European project, then there's something wrong, because these ideas are not radical enough.
Mm-hmm. So one KPI could be how many ideas have failed. Are they enough?
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the second question is, I think what is really crucial is to get the right actors into the boat. So right actors, I mean, with this having a huge diversity. How do you attract these unusual suspects? What is your experience here?
Yeah, so we are also at the beginning of this program, like a bit like Denmark. So we are running this for 1.5 years now. And it's also somewhere where we knew it would not be easy for us. So what we do is to use the boosters networks. When we select the boosters in the application itself, they have to present their network and their potential strategies to involve actors from society, especially that maybe are a bit less used to working with us, with Innosuisse, to begin with. So one way to do that is to use the networks of the boosters and the boosters managers. And the other way, as you quickly mentioned before, is also to use different forms of communication than our usual ones. So we usually have a newsletter, like the standard communication from us as innovation agency, and we try to participate to events that are not directly in the innovation support ecosystem. We try exactly to use maybe TV and radio to also include a larger public than usual. And what we have seen that works also quite well is for the boosters to start with challenges that are large enough, that are felt really from not only the industrial and the academic world, but really also from the societal world. So if they start organizing an event around a challenge that it's really like a societal challenge, for instance, one of our boosters on sports and physical activity organized a big idea generation event around how to make people in Lausanne do more sports and walk more. And in that case, they've really seen like the city was interested in that, the public transport of the city was interested in that, and also some citizens came to this event. And the booster itself and we, as Innosuisse, can profit from ideas also generated by these actors that are not usually participating in our programs.
Yeah, great. I think we would have a lot of questions for you also here. Very interesting. So framing the topic in a right way is also very important. Thank you so much. Thank you all the 3 experts from our best practices so much. I give the word now to Marte to introduce the breakout rooms.
Yes, thank you so much for the really interesting insights. And now we want to utilize the time, or at least half an hour, I think, which is very short, to dive a little bit deeper into the projects. And for this, we will have breakout rooms, and you can individually choose which breakout room you want to join. So you will hopefully see them coming up. And so it won't be a workshop session, because sometimes we think, oh, well, breakout, now we have to do sticky notes, but no, it's really about diving deeper into the projects, learning from best practices, asking questions, and understand what we can learn from our good practice examples from the experts and from other countries. And so again, so we will have breakout room 1 with Pekka and We will dive into co-creation funding from Business Finland. We will have Breakout 2 with Søren from the Technical University of Denmark, and we will hear more about Skylab Pilots. And then as a third breakout, we will hear more from Emile from Innosuisse, and we will dive deeper into end-to-end innovation booster. So feel free. I think I already can see the breakout, so feel free to join, and then we will meet here again in 20 minutes, half an hour. Enjoy. Start recording, as I just heard, because now we want to share some insights from the breakout groups as a wrap up. And we will start with group 1 with Pekka and Gertraud.
Yeah, I just asked my colleague to show us the Menti results. Just a minute. Probably another group is more prepared than ours.
No, Gertraud, the Menti is already in the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So if you share the PowerPoint, you should see your Menti.
That's perfect. Let's go down. Yeah. Yeah, I have it. Just 1 second. Thank you for your patience. So I'll make it larger here. Oh, this was wrong. Here we are. So we discussed with Pekka the Business Finland example, and we really discovered that Germany could benefit a lot. So the company's excellence could be one result of such a co-creation funding example. Increased transfer, we have down here faster international growth. So I think more competitiveness, then also bringing new players into the market faster, because I think scaling up could be done with such programs. Then create open value chains, more partnerships, new quality of transfer, more iteration, more best practices, stronger EU networks. Yeah, the core, what we discussed so far was really that researchers get a huge learning when they are attracted by money to do some research on potential markets. And we also learned from Pekka that sometimes this takes a lot of turns. So he shared an example from the COVID pandemic that some researchers wanted to provide some research for companies on antibacterial surfaces, and finally they ended up doing this not really with surfaces but in air cleaning. So it's quite often that a lot of discovery and turns happen during the program, and so this means a lot of learning is generated.
Thank you, Gertraud.
Yeah, with this, I want to end our small report.
Thank you. And we will continue with Elisabeth and Emile. What have you learned and what can we learn for Germany in general?
I hope you can hear me now. Yes, okay, good, thank you. A lot of discussion in my group was about this kind of social readiness level that Emile had also mentioned. So projects are not only judged on a TRL level as we're used to it, so the technology readiness, but also the social aspect. And that was really very interesting. I had the impression to the participants in our group, it ties into also this statement of integrating civil society, of this being a very bottom-up approach, also very experimental. And of course, a social technology social readiness level asks for a totally different way of judging also. a booster application of judging projects, something that oftentimes our societies are not very used to yet. So it comes with a lot of challenges. At the same time, Emile is driving this topic heavily. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more learnings generated also in the future on this topic. Other than that, you can also see a not sure there, for instance. Of course, it's always the question how to transfer something or how to think this transfer right now, how to implement the measure. I think this also means that it needs time, you know, to spend more thinking on it, to maybe learn more about it. I think this is also an invitation to everybody to read the study afterwards and maybe learn more about the respective project and think it through again. Is there something to implement or not? And one last topic that came up in our group was ecosystem versus project. We discussed whether this is now again a project focus that NTN Innovation Boosters is having, or whether it's an ecosystems focus. And my answer to this would be it's both. I mean, of course, it's project based because projects are easy also to guide, to measure, to feedback. But on the other hand, the project is part of a bigger ecosystem, so it contributes to something bigger. And I think that was a very nice realization also at the end of our session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elisabeth. And then we have last but not least, breakout number 3 with Lene and Søren.
Exactly. So in our group, discussion was focused on how to bring SMEs to actually work with the startups and also how to engage them in a more longer term collaboration. It was also asked on how the pilots program is supposed to go on after these 10 months, after the 3 years funding, and also how this exit phase actually works and whether that works well with SMEs or not. And then Germany could benefit by the scalability of this program design. And I think that's very interesting because Skylab Pilots is accompanied by this research study that is trying to look at the best way to do this. So scalability, I think, is a very interesting learning or a potential learning that Germany could take from pilots. Visibility of research is also something that was mentioned. And this is very clear with the developer hall that students just come in, look at things, become interested, and then maybe start to participate. All right, we are very tough in time, and that's why I will hand over to Marte to do closing arguments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lene. So thank you everyone for being here on our digital learning journey with us, and obviously a big thank you again for the experts. And yes, so our research study will be published in August, and we will share it with you via email, so you will be the first to know, but please also feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We will share our slides again after these sessions, and we are really looking forward to also continue this learning journey with you, because I think there is much to come, and also there's a lot of happening in Germany, in particular in the policies of open science, open innovation. And so I'm really excited to continue this journey with you. And now, as a final word, I also would like to invite you to the next event we have. It will be an open space on July the 5th on open science and open innovation, and it has the German title Open Science and Open Innovation, ziemlich beste Freunde. And again, here in this event, we also would like to discuss good practices with you and yeah, continue the journey. And with these words, thank you so much for being here, and see you soon.